Hey, this is Avar, and you're listening to Concede.
Greetings.
Hello.
Greet my greeting.
Well met.
I greet you.
Greetings, traveler.
Greetings, friend.
The pleasure is mine.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 105 of Concede, the podcast dedicated to making the competitive side of Hearthstone more accessible to you, the listener. I'm Cinder, holding things down for Kenny, who is currently horizontal and unconscious. Joining me from Gadgets in New York is Ridiculous Hat.
I'm not holding anything down because I am too small.
Fair enough. You can only be a paperweight at a certain weight level. And some double trouble, a double threat coming in from Orgrimmar, Illinois this week. It is both Songbird and Sir Slim joining us.
What's up, guys? Thanks for having us back. Well, and I guess
me
Sage
here for the first time, yeah.
I mean, you are technically part of the show, but we welcome Sir Slim as part of the show. In fact, before we get on to the regular business, we want to talk to Sir Slim a little bit because you are actually part of our crew now. You are one of our coaches. So for the listeners who do not know you yet, even though we have reported on you in the past, give us a little bit of your Hearthstone background and tell us what you do in and around the community.
All right, well, I've been playing for just a little bit longer than Cora. I did get her into the game. I more so focus on the arena side of things. Just recently, I managed to get top 10 on the arena leaderboard in May. And then after that, I decided to try my hand at some competitive tournaments in, actual standard format. And I went to my first ever DreamHack Atlanta, and managed to place top 8 there. So that was absolutely fantastic. I was very excited for that. Tried my luck again at DreamHack Montreal, placed 19th, so just out of top 16, but still very happy with my performance there. And we're gonna see how things keep going for me later in the competitive aspect. I plan on going to DreamHack Denver as well. And I've been practicing and really honing my skills.
Excellent. So you're you being an arena player, your collection has to be enormous, right?
I haven't been keeping up too much with the Knights of the Frozen Throne expansion. I just sort of blew all of my dust crafting so that I could build my decks to practice ranked and more tournaments. But I had at one point like 20,000 dust. That's more down to like 2,000 now.
Well, that's
Better
still
than my
legendary.
0.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm only at about 1,200. I keep making stuff. I can't help it.
Yeah.
And you're a legend players too, right?
Yeah. Not nearly as much as Cora, because I do mostly spend my time playing arena. But as of last season, I did manage to get legend again. So.
What is it, like your third, fourth time after your several-year break?
I believe it's my third time, and the second time was like season 2.
Yeah.
So
It's been a while. He's rusty, but getting back into it. So it's nice. It's nice to have a practice partner in my own home now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is good stuff. So we're gonna be having you throughout the show today, Sir Slim. So buckle up and prepare for some terrible puns. I
got you covered.
Done by me. Yeah, right. So this is the time that we let you know that Concede is supported by our listeners. That's right. You listening right now, you can support us. You can support us by Patreon if you would like. And if you do so, you get rewards in return. One of those might be being coached by Sir Slim, Arena Master, DreamHack Finisher, Top 8, Legend Player. Yeah, you can have him spend an hour with you every month by becoming a patron and more. We have lots more to be able to give back to you for supporting us through Patreon. And for those of you who are eagerly awaiting who wins the raffle for the DreamHack Denver tickets, we're going to make you wait just a little bit longer. We're going to raffle it off later in the show, so stay tuned. We are getting to it. I have the list of names right here. So we will be ready to go a little bit later on. So let's talk about our week in Hearthstone on ladder. Kenny says he ended rank 5 in Wild and started laddering standard for Rogue wins and is rank 15 in Wild already. Good job. Hat, how's your week in Hearthstone been for the start of the season?
Zoo is playable again, and I have not been this happy in a long time. Because Rogue, love Rogue, big fan, but Zoo was my first true love. And Noblord has this really amazing list. It doesn't play Darkshire Councilman. It doesn't play Vicious Fledgling. It plays 17 1-mana spells, including Glacial Shard, which has been really, really good. And then Prince Keleseth, Tara Creeper, Despicable Dreadlord, Doomguard, Bone Mare, Gul'dan, and that's it. And it's super duper good. I think I've played not a ton of games with it. I think under 20, but my win rate is like 75% or something. It's been extremely powerful, and I'm just so happy I get to play 1-drops and trade with people again.
Awesome. Cora, tell us about your week in Hearthstone.
I ended at, I believe, rank 2. I didn't hit Legend last season. Didn't play as much Hearthstone as normal.
Ooh.
I know, but it's a good reason. I was actually cheating on Hearthstone with another card game, and I casted my first Pokemon TCG tournament this past weekend with Ray C, who is a Panda Global Hearthstone player. It went really well, so I was jamming a lot of Pokemon and really starting to learn that meta. But I will be back to Hearthstone for DreamHack Denver for TESPA Collegiate this week, so don't worry, I'm not leaving Hearthstone. I'll ramp it up for this season, I promise.
Yeah. Oh, and I could throw in this little minor bookkeeping. We may be recording on Thursday nights for a little while to try to get Cora on more often, but we'll make an official announcement on Twitter to that effect. Sir Slim, how's your week in Hearthstone been?
For this new season, I haven't really done too much. I've played a couple games here and there, but towards the end of last season, I mainly made my Legend climb using Keleseth Rogue. Very, very standard list. I had two Draken or Cobalt Scalebanes, and there was Sori in there to help with the Priest matchup, obviously being dragons, and it went pretty well. So I'm glad to learn that deck. I didn't have any crazy win rates except for going up to rank 2, where I basically won nonstop, and that's what sort of convinced me to actually push for Legend, is that I was already there, so might as well.
Man, I would too. I don't blame you.
Yeah.
For myself, I got to play a pretty good session on the opening day, and tell you what, I had been kind of eyeballing HS Replay because they have some really great new granular meta reporting that you can fool with if you're one of their patrons and you're in their Discord. And I noted that the elemental variant of Prince Rogue not only had a better spread across the board because it's a little bit better against aggro, but it also actually beat Prince Rogue about 55-45.
That's the one that I've been playing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I started
Blaze
playing
Collars.
that. Yes, Fire Plume, Phoenix, Tolvir, Stone Shaper, Blaze Collars. Oh yeah. So I queued that up. I lost my first game, but then I won the next 9 and streaked up to rank 12.
Ooh.
And I was like, all right, this is good. I'm going to start on day 1 at rank 12. Seems
Good
good.
start.
That seems
Very
right.
nice.
Yeah.
But look, last month Warlock got me all the way up. Zoo Warlock got me all the way up to rank 3. So I'm with you, Hat. Like Zoo, and this is a good time for me because I need Golden for both of those classes, and both of them have great decks to play with. So I'm really excited.
Ed, do you have
Now-
room for Bone Mare in that elemental deck as well?
I do. There's a single Bone Mare.
Oh, the top end of that deck is so thick.
It's THICC thick, my friend.
Yeah.
All right. So it being a new month, that means it's coaching time. I usually schedule mine later in the month, just because there's a lot going on in Thunder Bluff. But I know Hat has already been hard at work. Hat, what has been going on for the month of October?
So combined with a little bit of end of the month craziness for us here at the show with the some of the staffing changes, as well as I have a small vacation coming up for a few days over the weekend here. So I've been trying to do the jam all my coaching together method. I had 4 sessions on Sunday and I have 4 sessions tomorrow. So I think my favorite was I worked a very long shift on Saturday. Again, because of vacation, I had to take a couple days off at the end of the week. So I get home from work at midnight, and then I had a coaching session with Midgame at 2 a.m. my time, which I think was 5 p.m. his time in Australia. And that was super fun, just like getting home from work, crack open a beer, let's play some Hearthstone.
Awesome.
It's not
Oh,
a
and I
bad
guess
way to relax.
Yeah.
I would be remiss without mentioning my traditional monthly coaching with Sir Slips, where we goofed around with amazing Death Rattle wild decks and memed people into the stratosphere. Though that was technically in September, so we'll get to October soon enough. And I don't think we have anything for Botticus yet. And again, Sir Slips is available for coaching. So if you want to hear what, not Sir Slips, Sir Slim. Sir Slips is in the
So
chat
many-
and
so
he's
many
messing me
sirs,
up.
yeah.
I'm sure
And
that
I'm-
Chris is not going to like Sage being a part of this now, too. There's just too
Sir
many
Slips.
sirs around.
Tom, get
It's-
ready to start coaching, friend.
Sir Slips needs to request Sir Slim, and then we'll figure out one enters the student and leaves the master.
Sirception. If you would like to hear about Sir Slim coaching you on the show, request Sir Slim because we will talk about it. We do have some new pledges this week as well. Real Evil Genius, not just any real genius, but the real one, the one and only. And Cody M. Thank you both for your support of the show. And one more patron reward thing to talk about before we get through to the chunky stuff. The Listener League is being officially announced right here, right now. I'm announcing it because this is my baby. Among everything else I do on the show, we are ready to go. So this is going to begin on October the 14th, the Saturday of October the 14th. Patrons already have access to sign up. So if you are a patron of the show and you want to sign up now before I open the floodgates, check your email that you signed up on Patreon with. You have an email with instructions. Open registration will be next week for about 4 or 5 days before the start of the event. So please sign up now. Now, this is a little bit unique because it is going to be a sort of a team format. You will be signing up as part of a 3-person team with a very special restriction. One player on your team must be a woman. No exceptions. You can have more than one, but one of them must be a woman. And it was kind of funny as the first wave of patrons came in and said, "Wait a minute, I don't know any women who play Hearthstone." So,
Great time to make some friends.
Exactly. Go. There are women playing Hearthstone. Cora is proof. So go find friends and bring them in. That is the whole point. We're trying to encourage participation. So each round, players on the team are going to split the 9 classes between them and play a best-of-5 set against your opponent from the other team. For 2 weeks, you're going to play 4 rounds of Swiss, so 2 matches a week. And in the final week, on October the 28th, we'll have the top 8 single elimination to determine the winner. And the prizes are pretty sweet. There's going to be some merch / BattleNet gift cards. And everybody on the team is going to get it. So it's going to be real hot. And I think, Hat, what do you feel about doing another podcaster gauntlet with a team between Yumi and somebody else?
Well, one player on our
as a
team must
three-man
be a
team.
woman, so probably should be Cora.
I guess it's Cora. Yeah, you're right.
We cannot have our listeners follow a rule and then not follow the rule ourselves.
I'd be down.
Yeah. So there you go.
Ooh.
For sure.
Right?
Oh man.
Yeah.
Oh, I like where this
This
is
is
going.
so
I
high.
got enough free time. I can figure it out.
And I think one of my favorite things about this as well is our Discord is a pretty diverse place, and so many people in the patron channel, like we have a lot of female patrons that are pretty heavily engaged with the show, so I know a bunch of them got snatched right up on teams, but people they had these informal relationships and then made more formalized ones just to put these teams together. It's been super fun to watch. So yeah, I would really love to have that kind of end boss gauntlet of the 3-headed dragon that we have here.
Be pretty sweet. I'd even step aside for Botticus because God's help you if you have to play against Botticus.
He's real good. Yeah, he kind of made short work of most of the cast last time.
Yeah, it's true. All right, that's it for patron stuff. Let's jump right into the news.
All right. So we've got some decent news for now. Not too much crazy stuff going on. Of course, it is ramping up towards BlizzCon, and Summer Championships are coming up. But first of all, there have been some data mined information from the Battle.net client that there will be a groups feature coming. We have the article linked in our show notes. It's just Hearthpwn news, so I'm sure you could find it there as well if you're trolling Hearthpwn. But they've discovered data pointing to a groups feature for the Battle.net client, which will be various things like be able to create groups and channels to organize chats, Groups have access to roles and permissions, much like in Discord. You'll be able to change your avatar to a client preset, and then there will be different group icons, of course, that are really fun. Go take a look at those. Everything from Overwatch to Hearthstone, of course, to WoW, to StarCraft, to Diablo. Some really fun stuff, it looks like. And then avatars, you'll be able to have many, many different characters. So that'll be a nice little touch, I think, to what we already have going on. They're trying to encourage more group communication through the Battle.net client. And I think that's a really good idea. Whether or not people actually use it, we'll have to see, because there's such a big community of Hearthstone players and Overwatch players that use Discord, Skype, Google Hangouts, whatever it may be. But if you can all do it locally through the Battle.net client, that would certainly be very convenient. So we'll have to see whenever that comes out, when we get more information on it. Second, there was a PC Gamer interview with Mike Downey. He is the principal game designer for Hearthstone. Of course, you've seen him doing several interviews here and there. He's done some reveal streams for cards at the beginning of new sets. He's a great guy, loves the game, knows so much about it. Obviously, he is the principal game designer. But this article talks just a little bit more about things he likes about the game, how he feels about the balance changes, how he feels about Prince Kaliseth and Ultimate Infestation, a little bit more in-depth information on the nature of the final design team, his viewpoint on the meta, that kind of stuff. It seems like he's quite happy with the way that things have changed since the balance patch. And I think that is generally echoing the sentiment that a lot of the community feels as well. So I would encourage you to go check that one out. Whenever we get any communication from the Blizzard Hearthstone development team, it is inherently a good thing. It is, I think, rarer than a lot of people in the community would like. They would encourage more communication and more openness between the community and the development team. But this is a really great article, so go and check that one out for sure. And then the BlizzCon 2017 schedule was released, so that's super, super exciting. I know there's probably a bunch of you that are going to BlizzCon, are excited to meet all of the podcasters. It's going to be there, all the players. There's always panels for each of the games, stage shows and previews and releases and leaks and that kind of stuff. And it is speculated that the final year of the Mammoth expansion will be revealed at BlizzCon. So that means we've got a lot to look forward to when BlizzCon is rolling around, even more than we already had to look forward to. So that's really exciting. But in the more immediate future, the HCT Summer Championships are coming up. And as always, they are doing a Choose Your Champion. So make sure you go on and pick your champion. It's free packs. Everybody loves free packs. Of course, 16 players, 4 players each from Americas, APAC, China, and Europe. And then the event will actually be in California at the new Blizzard Arena. So that is going to be really, really exciting. But I'm just curious, guys, who have you picked for your champion, if you've picked your champion already? Cinder, you got any idea who you're going with?
I almost snap picked Biza today just to be supportive, but I do want to just look at the deck lists, which publish tomorrow. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to do like a little simple simulation on percentages and see who looks good in what group, and then go from there. Yeah.
For sure. The more analytical approach, I like it. Hat, have you picked already, or are you still waiting on it?
I'm still waiting. There are a lot of really, really good players here. I'm kind of like, it's really hard to ever bet against purple. Like, I don't like betting against that guy. Also, I think Tom 60229 really impressed me with his play at the Asia Champs. So I could very well go in his direction as well.
Sage, you have any idea?
Well, we were talking this over before the podcast, but I don't keep too current with any of these players. But
he's just getting back into the
one name. Scene. I know Pavel. I know that he's pretty good at the game. Very, very skillful. I mean, he is, of course.
He wins a lot of stuff.
Very skillful, but also he's got the luck on his side, and that's important. So that's where I would put my gut feeling. But
yeah, if you're just going off of recent results, Pavel is a great one. But I can break down. They actually revealed the groups for the group stages. So Group A is going to be Trunks, Old Boy, Nalgidan, and Tom 60229. Group B is Purple, Uya, Amix, and Jason Zhou. Group C will be Surrender, Yay Tears, Omega Zero, and Orange. And Group D will be Pavel, Royal Bays, Coco Sasa, and Empanizado. So it seems like they're pretty evenly distributed groups. I'm kind of excited to see what Nalgidon can do, actually. I'm always a big fan of the South American, Latin American Hearthstone scene. I think they've been really on the come up over the course of this year. So him and Empanizado, I'm going to keep my eyes on. And then, of course, Royal Bays, who is the first female in an HCT championship. So that is very exciting. Can't wait to see how that one is going to go. It's going to be really great. An awesome event, I'm sure. But some sadder news. Splice has dissolved their Hearthstone squad. So I think this has been a pretty recent trend of, maybe not a recent trend. It's been a long time coming, right? Hearthstone teams have been dissolving their squads. Luminosity, of course, dropped their team, and now Splice has dropped the Rat and Astrogation. So it's a bit unfortunate. I think these two players especially bring a lot to the table. The Rat just did the biggest inception of the Rat race just this past couple of days. Of course, it was a huge event at Esports Arena, and Astrogation is just, he's a phenomenal player. They both bring so much to the table. Hopefully they will find other teams, but it just doesn't seem like there's really a huge drive to pick up players for teams right now. Other than the Trinity Series team tournament, there's really not much out there. So hopefully we see that changing next year. Hopefully we get some more reason for teams to want to pick up Hearthstone players and actually build up that team mentality rather than the individualistic one that I think we see most of the time right now amongst Hearthstone players.
You know, it's funny too, because there's, even though some of these big orgs have been making these kind of moves lately, there's a lot of small esports orgs that are actually picking up Hearthstone players. I saw just this week, Ness and Jombre, the two UK superstars, were just recently signed, and Fabelli, who had an HCT high-level HCT performance, the Greek player, he got picked up by a squad as well. So there is movement in that ecosystem, but I think what's happening is these older organizations that thought that you could get into Hearthstone with just a competitive squad are finding out that it's not really feasible. Like the payouts for HCT are just they're too few and far between.
Yeah, they're too infrequent.
So you can't really make money that way. You have to make money off of a personality, which is where like Fate to Karma and Complexity have really done super well. So I think that there's, esports organizations will find success in Hearthstone. It's just a matter of pursuing the correct model, and having just a competitive squad probably not the way to go if I had to put my finger on it.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't call them a team per se, but I think the model that makes sense is Omnislash, where
yes,
it is 100%
media
focused, but they have Kibler, Zalay, and Firebat. Like, I would take that 3-person squad any day of the week. It's media focused. That's where kind of the revenue comes in. The monetization is media first. And you mentioned Complexity. Complexity is all about, people like Asmodai, who doesn't really compete in tournaments, but is a fantastic streamer who streams every single day. And, it definitely adds something to the team and probably gets something for being on the team. That kind of relationship makes a lot more sense in this environment where being on a team outside of Trinity doesn't have a clear, tangible benefit other than a testing partner.
Yeah. I think you're absolutely right. Streamers are where the money is right now. Hopefully that will change, because I know some fabulous competitive players who just don't want to stream. They don't find that drive. Pavel, for instance, Oskaka, Chalky, some of the best players in the world that just don't, it's not their thing. They don't want to build a career by streaming. They just want to be the best players that they possibly can be. And they're some of the best players in the world, but that's just not where the money is right now. So hopefully we'll see a little bit of a transition away from just finding value in streaming. And next year there'll be more programs supporting competitive players on teams.
Yeah, and I'm gonna put in this last piece of news bit, and Hat, if you don't mind typing this in as I say it. Apologies for making you do a little extra work. But on the same topic of the HCT payouts, Noblord put together a really great analysis of how much work it takes to get to be competitive in Hearthstone and qualify for HCT playoffs, and then how much money you can expect to get for that work. And, as we've been talking about, like the payouts are so difficult to actually nail down. And there's a lot of stratification, like, a 16th place might get, $2,500 or something, but then 8th place is going to get a much, much larger pot And the difference is just in just the tiebreakers, numerical tiebreakers, 5 tiers down can mean the difference between, making rent and not making rent if you're trying to make a living out of this.
Factors that you can't control that are, who gets the random bye before the round of 8. I think that actually happened to PNC in the last season, and unfortunately he missed the cut because he didn't have a chance to win his match because he got the random bye. So it's things that are out of your control that can potentially really screw with your life, with your financial status. And right now it's just too risky for most players to do that.
Yeah, so and he has some great suggestions, on many fronts, one of which being reward consistency rather than the one big win. That would go a long way to supporting competitive players and being able to make that competitive esports environment more friendly to esports organizations, so they want to invest in players. So I think go give it a read. It's a great thread. So let's use that to transition into the tournament results.
It's the grand tournament.
So not tournaments per se. Well, there is one tournament to talk about, but we did want to touch on the Rat Race. Now, if you're unfamiliar with it, the player formerly of Splice, the Rat, Brian Cortade, he has for the last 3 or 4 seasons, has kind of held an informal event called the Rat Race, where professional players or just competitive players would come together and get on stream at the same time from start of server rollover and see who can get to legend fastest. This month, this is actually, it got some sponsors, it got some backing, and it actually turned into an actual event. There was an online portion that was casted. It took place at the new esports arena, and there were a lot of people online who participated as well. And it was, if you're in the Americas, it was a difficult cast to watch because it started at midnight Pacific / 3 a.m. on the East Coast, so not the best hours. But throughout the rest of Sunday, you were able to catch quite a bit of it. After the 24 hours, the legend window is for the event. The top player, the first player to reach legend was Hunter Ace. Now you recently saw Hunter Ace representing Norway in the Hearthstone Global Games, and just a few weeks ago he was 1 game away from qualifying for the Summer Championship. I think he's got knocked out by Pavel. During his legend run, he went 105-51, so 156 games to get there from rank 20 to legend, and he exclusively played Highlander Priest, Razakis Priest. Really, really great win rate, 65%.
That's like 60. Yeah, that's crazy.
That's an excellent performance. Wow. So if you feel bad about not getting 65% win rate, don't. Here's the best legend player for October the 1st. He had a 65% win rate. It just takes determination and grit to get through the grind sometimes. Mm-hmm. The second place player was PK Snow. He actually, the second place would have gone to Rosti, but Rosti played games offline and he was disqualified, unfortunately. Now Hunter Ace, of course, is in Norway, so he was part of the online competitors. The on-site competitors who were there at the arena playing, among them, Amnesiac ended up being the winner of, or the person who got furthest ahead on the online portion, in the on-site portion. He finished rank 2 when the 24 hours were up, and again, Rosti would have been second place behind him, but disqualified. Let's see, Reynad. Poor Reynad, who was also on site.
Yeah, when I tuned in, that's mostly what I saw.
They could have just installed a salt cannon and just pointed it at him for several hours, being stuck at rank 8. So look, if Reynad can get stuck at a rank, anybody can get stuck at a rank. So it humanized the experience a little bit, but oh my goodness, Reynad, already the king of salt, getting stuck at that point was really hard to watch.
It's tragic.
I want to be the guy at Blizzard whose job is just when Reynad signs on, just fiddle with the RNG knobs. I want that job. Yeah.
Rigged.
Just like, oh, wait, there's a knife juggler? Dial in on Leroy and attack.
Oh, and he hates Knife Juggler too, which would have made it that much more funny.
The video of him, the compilation of all the things he said about Knife Juggler over the years, is one of the funniest 3.5-minute videos I've seen. My favorite line is, "I've never wanted a digital card to feel physical pain before."
Wow. He's not the only one though. As the day stretched on, you could tell that fatigue was a serious factor in the play. It was very obvious that players were not only just physically showing the signs, but their play got worse and worse as the day goes on. So long sessions of Hearthstone are hard. They're really difficult. And the longer you go, the worse the more likely you are to start making mistakes because your brain just starts kind of shutting off. And the competitive players and pros, no exception. You could see it pretty clearly in their play as the day went on. And some online competitors even tweeted that they fell asleep and were unable to finish. So it just goes to show you that everyone playing this game is human, even the best. And Cora, I do want to kind of get your opinion on the casting because I really felt that the casting was kind of lacking. I mean, I guess it's not a head-to-head competition, so it's more grindy and more kind of like a lot of solo play. But what did you see as far as casting goes? What do you think they could have done to make it more exciting?
I mean, honestly, I tuned into the mainstream, saw that they were doing quad box, heard some of the casting, and I was like, I can go watch any of these players streaming on their own individual channels and just watch their run from their perspective. It's less confusing. They're likely more enthusiastic than I think the casters were, and it's obviously easier for them to focus in on just that one single game that they're playing at a time than the casters on 4. So the casters they're naturally at a disadvantage, having to look at 4 games at a time, having to go still for 24 full hours. It's not easy, but it's also not enjoyable from an audience perspective, I think, if you're overworking those people because they're not going to be at their best, right? Unlike the players, you can swap out casters. You can have them on shifts. You can go let them get, 5 hours of sleep at, 4 or 5 hours of sleep, just something. Go let them take a nap until they can come back, get them a cup of coffee and have them be a little bit refreshed. Have caster teams that can, swap in and out. So these guys have some breaks so that the casting is more of an official stream. And I know that this was the first time that they did it, so it can, of course, get better from here. But I think that that's really what they should focus on next time if they want to plug this mainstream for the event overall instead of just the individual streamers, which are naturally going to get more viewers than the mainstream. Then they're going to need some big caster names. They're going to need to keep the casters at their peak. They're going to need to give the audience reasons to tune into this specific stream instead of just Raynad's stream or Amnesiac's stream or Hunter Ace's stream, for instance. It's just, they really need to market it better and they really need to keep it at the absolute top form the whole time, which is so difficult to do. But I think they started at a good starting point and they can just get better from here.
Yeah, agreed. I really like the idea. Just need a little bit of improvement on the production side.
Yeah, the execution was just a little bit lacking this time, but it's first time.
First time, exactly. Yeah. Elsewhere, the Korea Major happened over in South Korea over this past weekend, and it was cast by our friend of the show, Gia, along with Falcone and a couple of other great casters. Yeah,
Jay Davy and Lothar, I believe, are the other two.
Yes, you're correct. Lothar for sure, and yes, Jay Davy was there. I caught most of the Falcone Gia matches that were cast, but anyway. Even though the championship tour points race is mostly over, the Korean Major still drew hundreds of players looking for the prestige and the prizes available for a high placement in a Hearthstone Major. This is a huge tournament. They had 16 groups of 32 players that played to narrow down to 2 single elimination best of 5 conquest brackets, 16-seat brackets. And there was a bit of a twist as well. Decks and classes could be changed in between rounds. So there was an extra layer of strategy, some people sticking to their guns and playing the best decks or the decks they know the best. Some people were studying deck lists and trying to level their opponents. It was actually kind of interesting to watch. I don't know if it's feasible for as a championship tour competitive format, but it was definitely pretty cool to see how the creativity kind of broke out when in between rounds with some of the players. But in the end, though, Maru defeats Maska 4-3 in a best-of-7 final to take the trophy, that being the only best-of-7 match all weekend. And Steacher defeated Mach Bay 3-2 to take third-place prize. And if you want to check out these matches, they are available on the Play Hearthstone stream. But it's we unfortunately miss a lot of the production because the main production is in Korean with the English language casters casting over it. But it's still pretty fun event to watch. So go check that out if you want to check it out. And I'm actually going to flip over the next tournament/event over to Cora because I want to hear her take on it. The Collegiate Hearthstone series, which we talked about a little bit last week. Cora's been casting it and following it. Cora, give us some impressions from the Collegiate Hearthstone event.
Yeah, so this is my third Hearthstone Collegiate Championships that I've worked on now. This season they're doing things a little bit differently. So last season it was pretty much just myself and Admirable that casted. This time they're having a professional caster host with a professional player every week. So last week I casted with Ray C, and this week Rob Wing was on with Zalay. So next week will be myself and Dr. Jikaninki. A-Bar is going to be in for a week. Ant will be in. Sidonia will be in. It's really cool, guys. This is, I think, what a lot of the community wanted, is pro player analysis mixed in with the professionalism that a broadcast expert can bring to the table. It's really great. It's really, really fun. The tournament is more relaxed than HCT. Obviously, it's college students competing for scholarships, so they're not professional players. But when you have that sort of authority on the broadcast side of things, and you have a more relaxed, fun atmosphere with these awesome college students who are so incredibly talented, but maybe they can't focus as much on it as professional players because they are full-time college students. It really is this awesome atmosphere. So I highly encourage you to go check it out. It starts at 5 o'clock Pacific, Monday and Tuesday. So we just had Zalay and Rob for this week. I'm going to be heading out on Sunday over to California, and I'll be casting with Dr. Jikaninki Monday and Tuesday of next week, starting at 5 p.m. Pacific. So check it out. And
I gotta say too, I'm a pretty big fan of the caster format they chose. That having a pro caster and a pro player together, it's hitting a really nice spot. I feel like because Zalay did really great this week, and so did Ray C. I'm all about it. The other last event we want to touch on a little bit. Trinity Series is going on right now, and Trinity Series is the regular invitational team event. That gets put on by ESL, the Russian organization, and they bring together the 8 among the best teams or esports organizations in Hearthstone and have their players play best of 11 sets of very lengthy casts, but really, really good high-level gameplay. Hat, have you seen much of Trinity so far, and what do you think?
My sum total of watching Trinity has been watching clips of Admirable casting, and it is... I can say, even without seeing a single turn of gameplay, it is by far the best part of the event. I love the format. I'm really holding out my time to watch it as it gets closer to the end of it. But I will say that from everything I've seen about it, the production seems to be pretty good, and it's a really interesting format. What I like most about Trinity is you kind of get perspective on what people are thinking because they have to verbalize it to their teammates, and getting a glimpse of a player mindset as well is super interesting to me. So it's definitely worth watching. It's a time-consuming watch, though. The games take a while. The matches take even longer. Best of 11. That's a lot.
It is insane.
Yeah, we'll report on Trinity once we get closer to the end of that event. But we did want to mention that it was currently going on. They just started this week or late last week, so it's ongoing as they're going to go through the group stages, and then they'll get to a final bracket later on. And don't forget, everybody, summer playoffs next weekend, October the 13th, that begins. And then we will know who exactly is going to the World Championships at the end of the year. No iTunes reviews this week, but if you would like to leave us an iTunes review, it is a very, very nice way to support the show without having to contribute monetarily. But more than that, it helps other people find the content that they want. If you like this and you think other people would also like it, leave an iTunes review and let people know exactly why they want to listen. And then hopefully the message will get out there and our community will just grow that much more. So let's hand it over to our Dexplanations segment for this week. Ridiculous hat.
That's me. All right, so Dexplanation this week. We're going to talk about this is somewhat of an intricate subject, and our goal is going to be talk about a complex subject and make it accessible. And it applies pretty naturally to the current meta in particular, but I think it's a generally applicable skill. We were actually talking with Slim beforehand. He's going to definitely chime in because it's an arena skill.
Mhm.
It's all about planning. So I think about casting. When I watch, Tespa, or when we watch Trinity or any series, you hear the phrase line of play. What is a line of play? What does that mean? How do we use that to describe what a player has chosen to do on any given turn? And line of play generally means it's not just the choice they're making now, but the series of choices they're committing to in the future, right? It's not just what I'm going to do now. It's what I'm going to think about doing next turn, the turn after that. It's how I'm going to set up my turns to end the game in a victory. Now, you may be asking yourself, how do players figure out what to do so far in advance, and how can we identify it from a perspective outside of that? And since Cora's right here, hey, Cora. So,
Hey, what's up?
from your perspective, when you identify a player making kind of a choice that seems a little off the wall or unusual in the context of a turn, but makes more sense in the context of a game, how have you usually gone about identifying that, and how you usually discuss that to make it more accessible to the audience?
So, a line of play in general is just a series of actions that a player can make, and generally there are differing lines of play. So, say you take one series of actions that is very defensive, right? You clear all of your opponent's minions. You use your burn spells to keep your board pressure. That's a very defensive line of play. But say you want to go for a more aggressive line of play. You want to push face with all of your damage, ignore the minions on board, and throw those burn spells at face and try to kill your opponent next turn, maybe by top decking a fireball or with your hero power over the course of several turns. It is just a sort of phrase that we use to mean these are the ways that you think you are going to win the game. They are different, but they could both get you to the same place. So then generally we will explain the pros and cons of these things. Being defensive means that he could get repetitive damage with the minions on board, but that means he's very weak to board clear and he loses a lot of the damage potential. Being aggressive means that if his opponent has burn or a board clear, then he could just fall behind, may not be able to win the game that way, but it gives him outs, right? He's playing to his outs generally if they are playing aggressive. And it really is just personal preference a lot of the time, but there is sort of a point in the game where that line of play can change, that game plan can change. And I think you're going to be touching on that quite a bit as well. But in general, that's just what we mean when we talk about lines of play. It is just the series of actions, whether they be differing, but ultimately you want to get to that same goal of winning the game.
I was expecting good explanation, and my expectations were somehow still exceeded. Thank you, Cora. It's almost like
Nailed
you do
it.
this professionally. So, and Cora did an excellent summation of this is a very complex concept if you dig into it. And players will discuss, I think Georgiou was famously referenced as having a 2-hour discussion about a single turn of Freeze Mage. And Freeze Mage in particular, you have to kind of plot out your lines of play long in the future. But you as a listener, you don't have to talk about each turn for 2 hours. Don't think that this concept is so complicated that you're not going to be able to adapt it. We're going to talk about some examples from the more obvious to the less obvious. So, the first example I want to use here. There's a deck that, it doesn't exist as much anymore, but was one of the biggest prominent boogeyman decks of early Hearthstone. It's called Face Hunter. And most of the cards in the original Face Hunter have been nerfed. I think 18 of the original 30 cards of Chalky's Face Hunter list, he said, has been nerfed. So Face Hunter, you had one game plan. You know what you did? You go face. You just don't have the resources to trade. It's not something that you have. And by choosing to trade, you are giving up damage. You are making the game go longer. As the game goes longer, it gets worse for you. So you want to finish the game fast, kill the opponent, go face. That meant taking a defensive line of play with Face Hunter. 99.9% not the right thing to do. And there might have been the rare corner case where it's the right thing to do, but if you're not killing your opponent, you're not doing what your deck is supposed to do. The urge to clear the board can sometimes come up, and often as people learn more about the game, as they get used to the idea of board control, when you lose board control, it feels so bad that people are driven to gain board control back. And in future games, they're like, no, if I just trade, they can't do damage. Well, it's if you're a face hunter and you clear off minions against priest, then they holding over you and then you lose, or you just go all face and they still clear your board, but they're at a low life total. So it's all about kind of managing your lines of play. Now, to use a different example, let's talk about a deck that doesn't exist as much anymore, but was also a major enemy of the format. Let's talk about Quest Rogue. Quest Rogue, whatever you were playing, you had to be aggressive against them. Because the other option is wait until all of their minions cost 1 mana and are 5/5s. Not an appealing option. So no matter what you're playing, doesn't matter if you're playing Secret Hunter or Midrange Shaman or Control Paladin or Jade Druid, your job was to be as fast as possible, because if you let the game go long, you were going to get charged to death from 30 life out of hand. Couldn't do that, right? The chances of you winning that game if it goes long just go down and down and down the longer the game goes. So your line of play, no matter what deck you're playing, is be the aggressor. This is also called, there was an old article in Magic written called Who's the Beatdown, where it's determining, am I the aggressor? Am I the defender? How do I go about this? And so these are two examples that are very, very clear, that are easy to identify. If we talk about a deck that's harder to identify, this is kind of where the skill factor comes in. Miracle Rogue. One of my favorite decks of all time, but boy is it hard to play. Because you never really know until you get into the game, how am I supposed to play this? Right? Miracle Rogue is very fluid, it's difficult to play, it can choose different lines, it can be really aggressive, it can go all in on Edwin or questing. It can wait for a big Gadgets and Auctioneer turn. You can even play a Valera deck with Vanish and Arcane Giants and go full combo. But the changes are not only based on your deck, but they're based on your matchup. I was playing a coaching game with, I think it was Nostromo, and we were against a Warlock. It's like, alright, it's turn 3. Make a big questing. Make a 6/6 questing right now. You know why? Because unless they have exactly Spellbreaker, they have no way to kill a minion without damage until turn 6 when they can Siphon Soul. Shadowbolt doesn't do enough. Hellfire doesn't do enough. If you make a 6/6 questing now and just keep growing it and growing it and growing it, it's going to hit at least 3 times. Just do that. The Warlock was dead on turn 6. So if you wait for the slower play against a deck like that, they're able to develop, they're able to make some Twilight Drakes and some Despicable Dreadlords and some Mountain Giants, and then they hit you with them and then you die. So, for example. But against Hunter, you have no healing and no taunts. You need to swing the Temple Rule, you need the backstabs and the SI agent, you need to control the board, and then you need to go for the kill quickly, because your life total is not ever going to heal in that matchup. It's never going to go up. So the longer the game goes, the worse it gets for you. You need to make sure the game does not go that long. So how do you know which of these options to choose? Now, there's many different ways that you can research and know your matchups, but I actually wanted to illustrate this isn't just about knowing your opponent's deck. It's kind of about knowing your own. And our friend Sir Slim over here.
Yeah.
Well, Sir Slim, you are clearly very talented at both Constructed and Arena, but you play a lot of Arena. How does this apply to Arena where you don't know what your opponent's deck even consists of?
That is, like we were saying, very dependent on what your deck is. You have to know the limitations of your own deck. If you have a crazy mage deck with Frostlets, Jaina, and Meteors, and Flame Strike, then you are playing the control game. That's just what your plan is. And very, very rarely will you stray from that path. But if you just have a sort of average mid-range tempo deck, then the point at which your plan becomes stop controlling the board and point things at face more is whenever you assess that your opponent seems to be playing better cards than you. If you're, again, in a mage mirror, which will happen frequently in Arena, if your opponent is dropping cards like Meteor or just higher value minions, then you have to take the risk and start going face. That's just the play that is laid out for you that is more likely that you will actually be able to emerge victorious, because, just as a sort of guess, you're guessing that their deck is going to be better than yours. And, it's all just sort of a guessing game. And the way you get there is by asking yourself questions every turn. That's how I like to go about it. You ask yourself, why did my opponent do this play? What's their game plan? Look at all my options. Which one is the weakest to potential answers that they could have? And then you go with the one that sort of seems the best to you, depending on all of these factors.
Yeah.
So
And naturally, it's going to be different in Arena versus Constructed
Mhm.
because in Constructed, you kind of have an idea of what your opponent's playing. You can pin down maybe
Exactly.
25, 26 of their cards. In Arena, you're much more, you just kind of have to go with
you
it.
do just have to sort of risk
Yeah.
assessment
Mhm.
with less knowledge, and
Yeah.
that's the important part. Like, what I've found in Constructed, I've been playing mostly Highlander Priest and Kaliseth Rogue, and what I found in these matchups is Highlander Priest. The common misplay there is not pointing Void Form at face enough, and you see all these minions and you get clear. You're like, oh, I can kill things so easily, but that's not really planning for future turns. Whereas, if you look at all the cards in your hand, you could easily have, 20 damage burst over, 2 turns, or even, ridiculous amounts if you hold on to Velen and cheap cards. So it's just sort of looking at your hand and, like what Cora said, is just picking the course of action that you want to commit to that you think will give you the best outcome. And, killing minions might seem tempting, but you really have to evaluate, will you be able to come up with enough damage to win after doing all that?
It's a trap that I tend to fall into a lot. I'm a very defensive player. I very much like control decks. I've played a lot of hyper removal, warlocks and warriors in my Hearthstone time, and I will often get caught up in the minutia of I can clear everything that he has, and then you forget that, oh, I don't have the damage now. I've traded my minions well, but I've missed 8 points of damage over the last 3 turns that I could have been pushing face and leaving a minion up and calculating this is how much damage realistically that he has. Without some crazy outlier tech card in the deck, he can't kill me. So I have no reason not to go face. I have no reason not to get a little bit aggressive. And it is sort of difficult to separate those two game plans from each other sometimes. But I find, in my experience, that it's better to take a game plan and go with that game plan, ride or die, commit to that game plan, because hybridizing the two together it's just usually
it
weaker.
generally doesn't
just
work
weaker.
out. Yeah.
And Sir Slum, I think you're going to fit in just fine here. That's what this is all about, is the two questions you have to ask yourself are, how do I win as opposed to how do I not lose? And then, how do I get there, right? How do I stick with that? Because there have been so many times I've caught myself playing on stream of one turn I'll be like, well, if our opponent has Dragonfire Potion, we lose, so I need to make sure I trade off this extra minion, and the Scale Bane comes down, and I buff this other minion, and then next turn I was like, okay, well, let's just play a bunch of minions. Wait, if I thought they had Dragonfire Potion last turn, it hasn't gone away. So why am I changing my play? And sometimes you might look at your hand, if you're playing Token Shaman, and you say, okay, I have Lethal Bloodlust next turn, I don't have any more Devolves, if I don't Bloodlust them next turn and kill them, I'm not going to win. If they have Spreading Plague, so be it. I lose to Spreading Plague. If they don't, I win right now. Sometimes you have to make that risk and go all in. Sometimes you can play around it, and if you commit to playing around a card decently far in the future, you can usually identify and say, alright, I know that I need to not lose to Spreading Plague. I need to make sure I trade off my 1/1s, as opposed to going on a super wide board. I know that I need to make sure that Scalebane hits something that's going to survive when it hits a Scarab, and I need to make sure that I push damage now before turn 6. If you commit to that early on in the game, you can kind of guide all of your decisions around that going into each of your turns, and you can focus your game plan so that the card doesn't even beat you anymore. As opposed to just saying, well, it's turn 5, Spreading Plague kills me next turn, and just throwing your hands up and just letting it happen. It's all about identifying, how am I going to win? How am I going to come at this game the victor? Because the goal is not to win a specific turn. It's not to say, okay, if I trade here and trade there and all that, I'm going to have a better board state this turn. It doesn't matter if then they brawl you and you lose, right? You have to make sure you're playing, how do I navigate to the end of this game? Now, this might be an intimidating conversational topic because so much of it seems based on matchup knowledge. And you know what? Matchup knowledge, if you are making a legend push, you need to have matchup knowledge. Needs to happen. If you're pushing for rank 5, rank 10, rank 15, if this is your first time trying to take Hearthstone a little bit more seriously, you're new to the game, don't think, okay, I need to look up every deck list on Vicious Syndicate and memorize them, or otherwise I'm not going to be competitive. That's not accurate. What you do need to do is think about, like what Sir Slim was saying, what does my deck do? What do I want to do? And then, there will be times, the first time you see a Consecration or a Flame Strike ever, you'll learn not to play around that card again. But until you learn all the cards, it's going to be difficult to kind of put yourself in a situation where you can react to things before they're being played. What you can do is act proactively and say, this is how I want to win. If you're playing Zoo, I want to go wide and trade and trade and trade. If I'm playing a more aggressive, if I'm playing Pirate Warrior, just go face. All I'm doing is just hitting him in the face. If I'm playing, say, Freeze Mage. Well, first of all, if you're a new player playing Freeze Mage, God bless you. But
Yeah.
it's tough. But your goal is survive until you can Alex Drowsy your opponent while you have an ice block up and then throw burn at their face. That is your game plan. So there are times you deviate from that. There are times you have to burn some minions. But ultimately, your goal is block up, Alex you, kill you the next turn. Right? And so if you're using all those cards in a different way, you need to think about, why am I doing that? If you make a decision on one turn based around a particular card, the next turn you need to act as though the card is still in their hand. Because if you're doubting your own decision one turn later, you shouldn't have made it in the first place. You didn't commit to it. Cinder, what do you think?
So at the Highlander Priest is actually a really great example of knowing exactly what your deck does in order to win, and making sure that you play into that. And what I mean by this is that I see a lot of people new to the deck make the mistake of expending all their cards. They see an opportunity to use Shadow Word Pain, to use Shadow Word Death, to use Shadow Word Horror, to use Dragonfire Potion. All of these opportunities to use their removal tools, their control tools, but then by the time they get to playing Raza and Anduin, they have no more cards in their hand. And that's the trap, right? Like you have to be able to know exactly how your deck wins. And with Highlander Priest, it's to hit them in the face a bunch of times with Void Form. And in order to do that, you need to have cards in your hand. So if you burn all your cards early, you can't do that anymore. So it becomes learning how to be a little more stingy with your tools, right? And reserve some cards that are useful, but maybe don't affect the game as much as they could, and getting the most value you can out of your removal pieces. And it's those kind of little micro decisions that go into the macro plan of finishing the game in Void Form. So that's a great example of, even if you don't know what your opponent is playing, you can at least identify your own win condition and play to that very, very specifically.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And there are certain decks that they really only have one way that they can operate. Zoo it's very inflexible, right? It's a tempo deck. You need to go wide. You need to sort of make those valuable trades every single time. And then there are more flexible decks. Usually control decks are going to be those decks, or decks like Jade Druid, for instance, can play the trade game. They can also play very aggressive and kill with just, Jade Curve. But it is, your responsibility as the player to not know every single card that's in every single deck, but know every single card that's in your deck and know the basics of, how do I operate against, the mirror? How do I operate against Rogue right now? The popular matchups at the very least, and what you're going to be seeing most of on that ladder climb, because then you'll just have that much more success because you'll be so much more prepared for those popular matchups.
Yeah. And I want to make sure as well I illustrate a very important semantic difference here. It's going with your deck's ideal plan going into a game is very different from committing to a plan in-game. So, for example, Razaka's Priest, again, we're coming back to this very common deck, and the deck plays a lot like Freeze Mage, except you don't have Ice Block. So, one of the really, really bad matchups there is Quest Mage. Terrible matchup. They have Ice Block, they have an infinite damage win condition, and you don't really put a lot of pressure on them as a Razaka's Priest. So, if you were the Priest player, going into any game, your goal is not to be aggressive. Your goal is to control the board, get your combo, and kill them in a couple turns. Again, very similar to Freeze Mage. But, if you are paired against a deck like Quest Mage, you get that turn 1 quest, you can commit to the plan right then, I am going to kill my opponent as quickly as possible. That is not what your deck normally wants to do, but it is what you are doing this game. So I think the idea is to have the knowledge of what your deck generally wants to operate in most general matchups, and then you need to learn, if you want to make that Legend push, this is really where it comes into effect from rank 5 to Legend and above. If you want to make that Legend push, you need to learn when to break the rules and make a new plan. Doesn't mean you don't stick with the plan. right? You're not going to be playing Razaka's Priest and get down the Anduin, and then they play a Novice Engineer in turn 9, and you're like, well, I got to deal 2 damage to that. You're going to commit to going face. But you have to make sure that you make the plan ahead of time. Then you say, am I making a new plan this game? And then whichever you pick, you have to stick with it, right? Splitting hairs, like Cor was talking about earlier, and like Sir Slim was talking about earlier, you can't say, I'm going to do a little column A, a little column B. You can't mix and match aggressive and defensive. It doesn't really work. If you're playing Control Warrior, you don't armor up after you hit them in the face with Fiery War Axe. That's just not how you play it.
Yeah, and I mean, there's always going to be like certain outlying scenarios. I don't know if you're familiar with the Coach Twisted match at DreamHack Montreal, where
Infamous.
if Coach Twisted had realized halfway through that game that he was playing that game completely incorrectly and corrected, he still could have won that game. But that was a case of committing to a game plan that was just incorrect for that matchup. He went so defensive that he just gave up all of his tempo, gave up all of his advantage of having Shadow Reaper Anduin down first, and gave the game over to his opponent. So yes, there are circumstances where changing your game plan will work out. But in general, if you have knowledge of how that matchup operates, you won't fall into that pitfall in the first place, right? You won't end up using your Void form to kill all of your opponent's minions, because you'll know that's not how you win against an opposing Razaka's Priest.
And it is important to note, very good point, Cora, and I'm glad you brought it up, because what we see as well sometimes, I am guilty of this, it's a lot of streamers will do this, if you make a mistake in game planning or even in execution, don't be afraid to correct your game plan the next turn, because it'll show your opponent that you look dumb, right?
Just squelch them and do what you got to do.
Yeah, just squelch them and do what you got to do. But if you say, oh, I really should have done this last turn, but I'm not going to do that, and you try and retroactively rationalize, well, it was a misplay then, and now I'm committing to that particular misplay, don't do that. If you are Coach Twisted in that matchup and you're like, wait, and you start counting your hand, you say, well, I've got 30 damage in hand, start going face. Go ahead and make the change. Don't commit to a line of play just because you've done it already if you realize it's incorrect. It's very difficult to do this in game, and it's also a strong impulse to change your game plan based on what your opponent is playing. You want to resist that urge as much as possible. It's really in extreme or unusual situations that you're going to find yourself reversing it. And it's honestly, on a ladder situation when you're not in a tournament, it's probably better to stick to the game plan and then figure out if it worked or not, and then decide what to do next time. Because you won't know if it works out. If you mix and match your game plans, you know you're going to lose. So it might be better in the ladder situation where we're talking about hundreds of games a month. Pick what you want to do it, see how it works out, and then say, well, that's either the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do.
That's kind of the Hearthstone equivalent of the sunk cost fallacy, right?
Yes.
Like, don't continue making a mistake just because you spent time making it before.
Yes.
It's like a really long, really bad relationship.
Ooh, man, that one hit home. Ouch.
You get out of it eventually.
Yeah, right.
You
If
find
it's bad,
something
get
better.
out now.
Yeah, you get
Okay,
out of the bad line of play and you find the better one.
And bringing on our next guest host, Dan Savage. No, we're not. No, okay. We're still a Hearthstone podcast. Okay, cool. Hat, any summary thoughts there? Or are we good?
I think we're great.
I think we're also great. So thank you so much for that discussion on lines of play. That was amazing. And if Sir Slim's contribution there is any indication of what coaching is going to be like with him, I want to be coached by Sir Slim right after this podcast, because that was fantastic. Oh man! But now that we're done with that, it's time to move on to the raffle for the DreamHack Denver LAN tickets. Here we go.
Rock is dead.
I have in my hand the list of names. I have in my same hand, because I'm holding a dog in the other hand, my dodecahedron, my D20, and I'm going to roll some dice, and I'm going to consult this list of names and see who wins these 5 tickets, LAN tickets. Bring your own computer to DreamHack Denver. Here we go. First one is... that would be Scott C. All right. I'm just going to go right down the list. Here we go. Next one. That is Adrian H. And third one. Ooh, top of the list. That is Justin M. All right. Fourth ticket goes to number Adam V. And the last and final DreamHack ticket goes to Andy T. So those are our 5 winners. Let's see. I ticked them. Scott C, Adrian H, Justin M, Adam V, and Andy T. And let's give these guys a round of applause. Woo! All right. So if you heard your name just now, Kenny will be emailing you to get your shipping information, and you will be getting your tickets to DreamHack Denver very, very soon. Awesome. So thank you once again to Robert from the Inn, the Hearthstone group on Facebook, for giving us the opportunity to raffle these tickets off to our community. For those of you who are lucky enough to win these tickets, we will be reaching out to you tomorrow regarding how you can obtain your tickets. So Kenny will email you. Keep an eye out for it. Thanks once again for everyone who wrote in. And if you would like to write in, just to write in and say hi, even though there's no more tickets left, coinconcede@gmail.com is the email address. But I think that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I think we're done. I think we nailed it. Let's get out of here.
Wait, what?
Nice one.
Is the episode under 90 minutes?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, we're just over 65 right now.
That's right. What do we do? We'll spend 25 minutes on the shoutouts. That's just what we'll do.
All right. I got you. Wait, we identified the line. I'm going to stick with it.
Okay, fair enough. Cora, you want to walk us through the thanks?
Heck yeah, I do. All right. So, as always, thanks to Stefan L. for letting us use his wonderful cover of the Hearthstone theme song. Oh, crap, I X'd out of Skype.
Oh, my God.
Okay, so...
My bad. I'm back.
Oh, there we go.
Sorry.
Oh, my God.
Thanks to Stefan for letting us use his cover. Sorry, guys, I just failed so hard. Check him out on his channel, linked on our show notes. You can catch our blog posts at coinconcede.com, along with our show notes, where we have all of the links that pertain to that week's news. So I recommend you go check that out and get all of that news more in depth, especially that interview this week with Mike Downey. It is fantastic. Follow us on Twitter at CoinConcede. Contact us at coinconcede@gmail.com. And of course, like and share our Facebook page at facebook.com/CoinConcede. If you want to join our Discord community, which also I definitely recommend that you do, it is a fantastic Discord community, discord.coinconcede.com. And if you want to buy any of our sick merch, shop.coinconcede.com. There are some seriously amazing shirts and artwork that we have up there, so I would very much recommend that you go check that out.
Awesome. We also want to give out the biggest of big thanks to the show's producers, Viriatus, Psych Mopcoat, Reganus Prime, and Kylum. You guys are the beating heart of Coin Concede, and we really appreciate your support. So let's move on to the shout-outs. I'll do Kenny's. Kenny wanted to shout out the Georgious for being gorgeous. Thanks you two.
Kenny!
Aw, I'm sad I missed him this week, but hopefully he's getting some good rest.
Yeah. Hat.
So
Shout out.
So I went on a small day trip yesterday, had a couple hours of driving, and caught up on my podcast. And I listened to, I think, 4 different podcasts where people that were in our Discord and these other Discords all got shouted out for hitting Legend at the same time. And first of all, love that a bunch of people made Legend for the first time. There are a lot of them. I'm not going to try and remember names off the top of my head because I will miss people and feel real bad. But if you made Legend the first time this month, congratulations. If you get your personal best this month, I think you're fantastic. If you didn't get there but you were trying, God bless you. And if you're struggling but still playing the game, you know what? We've all been there. Thank you for being a part of the community. But I especially want to thank Velen's Chosen, Walk to Work, Off Curve, and 1600 Dust for being podcast bros and just being a part of this community that definitely feels like it's become more than the sum of its parts. I think a lot of this started with This Time Legend back in October, which is almost a year ago now, when Cinder and made a bet with Grant and with Blister Guy, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and that was I think Walk to Work still existed then, but it had just gotten started.
Yeah, it was still in double-digit episodes, right. And he does it 3 times weekly, so it was still pretty fresh.
Yeah, so that was early on. Grant had been on Velen's for a little while, and Cinder, and they all came together and made this bet, and then that channel really took off about 5 or 6 months later. And since then, we've had a ton of cross-pollination in all these different Discords. Off Curve doesn't have its own Discord because Wicked Good is in every single other Discord. But otherwise, the Walk to Work community, the Velens community has been really excellent. 1600 Dust today just had on Major Death to talk about what it's like to get a first-time legend. He specifically shouted out how supportive all the Discord communities really were. It's really amazing to see everyone kind of getting together. And in a time when the game has had its ups and downs, for people to be not only performing well, but having that support network built in, we're really proud to be a part of it. And double extra shout-out to Eve over on Velens Chosen. I would listen to an entire episode of just Laura Moments. I would listen to a whole episode of just her Laura Moments. They've been so incredible and so much fun to listen to, and have made me open WowPedia and look up character histories for multiple hours. So shout out to everyone involved with that. Yeah, big fan. If I could spell her Twitter name, I'd share it all with you, but it's Finavar. Just pick a random amount of N's, O's, V's, and R's, and you'll get it right.
There's a lot of R's.
There's an H in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like FHINOVARRRR.
Yes, but at least two of those letters you mentioned are doubled, and I don't know which ones. So
I believe it's the last two R's, maybe the N's. Okay, you know what? I don't actually know, so I'm not gonna even try.
Yeah.
Sir Slim, do you have shout-outs for the week?
I don't have anything planned, but I guess I could toss a quick shout out to my friend who will probably be one of the first people I coach, Big Crazy Gamer, otherwise known as Eric Franklin. So, sup?
He's been a huge supporter of the show. I know that
he really has. Yeah.
He probably doesn't talk to you much about that aspect of it.
No,
But
I'm aware.
He's a great supporter of the show. So
yeah. And
I was always saying, oh, he's one of Sage's friends, and now you're Sage.
Yeah.
So
that was
We've come full circle.
First, but not only coaching request, but it definitely was the first one. And I believe the Georgiou family has a particular nickname for him, which I won't share on the air, but is pretty fun.
Yeah, we do.
Okay, y'all gonna have to tell me that after I stop the stream, because that sounds okay. Cora, you want to shout out?
Yeah, I'm gonna give a shout out to my good friend Ray C. For casting not one but two events with me this past week. We spent a lot of time together, and it was really awesome getting to cast with him for the first and second time. And he's also on his own podcast now as well. So I believe he's on Well Met.
Yes.
So yeah, if you don't already listen to Well Met, go check out Well Met. It's always great to get experience with other podcasts in the scene. And then you guys, as always, for having me back on. It's always great when I get a chance to actually come back on the show. So
well, we're gonna try and get as much Songbird as we possibly can, because the kids love the Songbird. It's a fact.
You got to give the kids what they want.
Exactly. And for me, I'm gonna shout out one of our newest Discord members, Iron Skyline. Why? Because he is a member of the Collegiate Hearthstone tour. He is playing for Oklahoma State, and he came to our Discord today to check things out and maybe get a little inside tracks on some good tactics and decks and strategies. So good
That's
stuff,
awesome.
man.
I'll have to keep an eye out for him.
Good to have him, and hopefully I'll be able to impart some hunter knowledge on him, and maybe Oklahoma State will get a little bump in the ratings. We'll see.
Very cool.
All right, contact info, Sage. Where can people find you if you want them to find you?
Well, I'm not too up to date on the social media, but I do have a Twitter, SirSlimHS, and maybe if you follow me there, you'll get the occasional tweet that is totally not done by Cora.
Not me at all.
Goodness.
Not me. I mean, you're in the Discord now as well. People
It's
can find you
true.
there, and
Alright.
if they hit you up, then you got a lot of room on your friends list. So
Yeah, I'm very able to accept friend requests.
Sweet. Boticus, if you want to follow him, he's on Twitter at BoticusHS, and his Twitch is simply Boticus. Cora, how about you? Where can people find you?
follow me on Twitter at songbird_HS, on Twitch at songbird_Cora. Twitch.tv/SongbirdCora. And then, of course, I will be casting Tespa this week with Dr. Jikaninki on the Play Hearthstone channel Monday and Tuesday, starting at 5 p.m. Pacific. So keep a look out there.
And DreamHack Denver.
And DreamHack Denver. Yeah, I'll be casting DreamHack Denver. So if you are one of the lucky winners of our DreamHack Denver tickets, make sure you find me when I'm there. I would love to say hi.
Sweet. Ridiculous Hat.
That's me. You can find me on Twitter at Ridiculous Hat, where I tweet more than Sage does. You can find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/ridiculoushat. you can find me in Discord, speak my name, and I shall eventually appear. I am going on a small trip this weekend. It's, my friends kept asking me at dinner last night. I was out of town. They're like, why do you have so many notifications? It's just like Discord. Yeah, but feel free to tag me if you want to get my attention or you have an awesome pun. If you have an awesome pun, actually, while I'm on vacation, Cinder has said he wants to hear all of the puns, so make sure you tag him instead.
Lies.
Yeah.
Fake news.
So, yeah. And yeah, that's it.
And I guess there's me too.
Cinder, where can people find you?
Oh my goodness. Twitter is @Cinder Ascendant, and my Twitch is also Cinder Ascendant, where I did have to put a couple of pennies in the jar this week for not getting on much Lunchstone. That's what happens when I don't make food for myself and I have to go get it. But yeah, Lunchstone is a thing. It's official. It's great. And I am casting Friday night fights for Team Hearth League on twitch.tv/Team Hearth League. Although this week, I think Legend Ladder Superstars Dwayna and Fly Sly are going to give it a crack. So we're gonna watch them and make sure they get a really hard time in Twitch chat. So catch me there though for the rest of the THL Season 7. I'll be casting Friday nights mostly with Follow Durden. It's been a great time so far. And as for Kenny is @KCCO_gamer. He's on Twitch at the same twitch.tv/KCCO_gamer. And if you want to add him on Battle.net, ping him on Discord and let him know who you are. And I'm sure he'll add you if he has room. And that's going to do it. We're done.
All right.
Show complete.
That was easy, relatively painless.
Good
job, guys.
It's where's the rest of the show?
You know what? We just kept moving. I liked it.
Yeah.
I think it's a nice, digestible piece of beautiful ear content.
I do have one last shout out. I know we're at the end
let's do
here,
it.
but Robert A. Wing is hosting a dad joke panel at BlizzCon. I have already.
Wait, he's hosting it?
I'm he saw it on the schedule. I'm not sure if he's hosting it. I know he's going to be there. He tweeted about it.
But he
I hope
pointed
he's
it
hosting
out.
it. I hope he's hosting it. But either way,
Rob loves it.
I don't care how late I stay up the night before. I will be there. So if you are going to the dad joke panel, I will see you there. I'll be wearing a hat that has the word ridiculous on it.
Oh my lord. Okay. Let's end it. For those who are not here, Kenny, you in particular, sir, and for everyone else, Ishine alo pora, and if you see us on ladder, coin concede.
Coin concede.
Coin concede.
Greetings.
Hello.
Greet.
My grease.
That's the wrong
Coin
one.
concede.
There we go.
We got
Great,
it.
flawless.
Take cold comfort in your victory. You win. I can rest now. You win. For now. Now, your victory proves nothing.
The day is yours.
I choose death. You have triumphed. This time, this heart is yours.